Well, Sex and the City taught me that I can have it all as the modern woman. Okay, but now that I'm 30, is that really true, especially when it comes to the concept of balancing motherhood and lawyering? We have a special guest today, Lindsey Obenhaus, and she's going to shed some light on the subject. Buckle up. Hey y'all, welcome back to #Lawyered. We have Austin, of course, and a special guest with us in studio today, Lindsey Obenhaus.
Hi guys.
Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, we're so thrilled to have you. So this is a subject that I am very excited to learn about, especially since all my friends who are married are either pregnant or having children, and I just need help understanding what I can do to support them and just be there for them, and then eventually, hopefully, for myself as well. So maybe this episode's a little selfish for me.
That's awesome. I think it's a great topic for all women, all moms in the workplace, and men too. I think that this is an issue that affects all workplaces and lawyers in general. So thanks for having me on to talk.
Absolutely. So before we dive into the meat of the podcast, why don't you just give a little bit of background on yourself, like where you went to school, your law firm, your kiddos?
Sure thing. So I'm Lindsey Obenhaus. I'm a partner and a family law attorney at GoransonBain Ausley. I'm board certified in family law, and I've been practicing about 10 years. I have 2 little boys, Joseph, who's 6, and Jonathan, who's 4, and a husband, Jason, who works in finance.
And then I hear you've had 2 new additions recently.
Yes, yes, we were just chatting about our new puppy, Gus, who's 6 months. He's a Sheepadoodle. And we have our new kitten, Daniel, who is also 6 months, and he is our adopted pandemic kitten from Dallas County. So it is a very full house right now, and we're making it work.
Yeah, it's like I said before we got on the air, you guys got a lot going on over there.
It's a circus. It definitely feels like a circus some days, but it's fun. Never a dull moment.
Love it, love it. You know, who wants dull moments, right?
Not me.
Always keep it moving. Awesome. Well, so Lindsey, you know, when we were first discussing the subject, you know, you told me that this is a subject you're very, very passionate about. And so, you know, how did you, at the risk of sounding trite, how did you become interested in this subject?
Well, I think it comes to a point where my professional life and my personal life had come together, and I've just become fascinated with the roles of moms. And, you know, as a family law attorney, I'm passionate about helping women, parents, moms maintain their identity and the relationship with their kids through a stressful time in their family's lives.
Absolutely.
And also carrying over my clients' experiences, what I was experiencing at work, to the difficulties and challenges that I faced when I started having kids and building my career as a litigator, really made me passionate about helping other moms and understanding the issues that are unique to working moms and lawyer moms in particular.
Lawyer moms in particular. Yes, I've been starting to learn about the lovely, unique obstacles that, you know, lawyer moms face.
Yeah, I mean, and Andrea knows this, at our office we have 2 lawyer moms that work with me as well, and it's definitely a unique situation. You know, one of the things that I've seen, at least with some of my coworkers, and I'm sure, Lindsey, you've probably experienced this, but you obviously talked about that you've got a new perspective for some of your clients because of the fact you understand where they're coming from. And how do you think that's helped you advocate for them in those, and I say them, those other, you know, moms, even maybe single moms that you get to represent? Absolutely.
I think that one of the, even though all parents in general, when you have a baby, when you go through the process of starting a family, you transform. But as moms in particular, and studies show working moms in general maintain more of the mental load and more of the logistical execution of the child care arrangements and the household planning. So the situation in general can be different for working moms and lawyer moms. One of the strengths that comes through working through those difficulties is it makes you more empathetic. And being more empathetic to your clients not only builds that trust, which lawyers have to have, that's the foundation of our relationship with our clients and our profession, is building trust with your clients, empathizing with their situation, and I'm a better advocate for them. I can speak more passionately about their situation. I can bring my own experiences of how to manage pickups and drop-offs, or how to manage a day-to-day routine of a newborn. You know, those sorts of situations that I have that knowledge of benefits my clients in the family law courtroom. And I'm so glad that I can help them in that way.
And so the fact that you've been a lawyer for 10 years, you're a partner, you probably have opinions on who the most efficient lawyers tend to be. Can you shed some light on that?
I sure can. Hands down, the best mentors, the best advocates, the most efficient, smartest lawyers that I have grown from in my 10-year career have been lawyer moms. There's something about the experience of motherhood that, to me, has brought these women so far in their careers, not only because they've successfully juggled a personal life and a professional life, but they've also developed a system of how to get things done, how to be empathetic, how to be a skilled leader. And don't even get me started on negotiating skills.
Negotiating skills. Something tells me negotiating bedtime with a 2-year-old probably takes a lot of willpower.
You learn a lot of patience. You learn a lot of, I want to say sometimes we pull from hostage negotiation skills.
Oh my gosh.
And psychological skills to get through. But there have been mornings where I'll show up to court and start negotiating before a hearing. And I'm like, I have already been through Wafflegate at my house.
Wafflegate, I love it.
I have already negotiated my way through this morning. I'm ready for this. Like, I come in hot. So kids will definitely teach you the art of listening, understanding, and how to persuade people to do what you want them to do, especially when they're not always the most rational negotiators on the other side.
Which I'm sure can sometimes happen from time to time in the arena of family law.
It does. But also, it's important for parents and attorneys, especially family law attorneys, to develop a sense of humor about things. And not take yourself so seriously. It's all very humbling and brings you down to earth.
So, Andrea, you're saying that you think some family lawyers may act like 2-year-olds? Because that's a new thing I've never heard before.
Well, I'm just going to let the audience decide what they think my comment means.
I think Lindsey would agree with me that we see that all the time in family law.
Unfortunately, but there's a lot of experiences that I think being a mom and an attorney can bring to the table. So like we always say at work, if you want something done, give it to one of the working moms, because we've always got room for one more thing. What's one more thing on our list today? I've already got Teacher Appreciation Day, a deposition, and karate at 6 p.m. Just go ahead and add one more thing to the list. No big deal.
Well, all of that just sounds so overwhelming. You mentioned systems earlier. So can you break down for us, like, how do you manage all of these things? What sort of systems do you find putting in place helps for you?
Sure. So I've seen so many different examples of women and their personalities to make things work. Being a lawyer is a full-time job that necessarily isn't confined to a day, and being a mom is a full-time job, or being a parent is a full-time job that isn't confined to a single day. So I've seen multiple systems people use: lists, sticky notes on your car, keeping voice memos on your phone, all sorts of things like that. But I think the most important thing that system-wise that I've developed over my experience as a mom has been a system of childcare, and making sure that I have that reliability, that predictability, and control over where my kids are and where I can be, so that everybody's needs are being met.
I love that. So childcare, I've looked into childcare because, again, several of my friends are expecting, and so I was like, oh, how can I be helpful? Would you like me to research daycare options? Happy to do that. Oh my gosh, I don't know if I made a mistake. I was instantly overwhelmed and underwater. There's delayed starts, there's Mother's Day out, there's bilingual schools, there's church programs, there's the schools that promise to get your child into Harvard. And I was like, they're 3 months. How does Harvard have anything to do with this? It's all very confusing to me. So could you lend some light on the whole child care Gordian knot?
Absolutely. And first, you are a great friend. If I have a third, I'm calling you, and you can do my research for me
happy
too.
To help.
But there are so many options, and that's a great thing, because there's no one size fits all solution for every family. And I think that one of the first things people need to do when they start thinking about kids or thinking about their childcare is to think about, well, what's going to suit our needs? What's important to us? Having it all doesn't necessarily mean saying yes to somebody else's vision of your life. It means identifying what you want and you need, and then go out and find the childcare that helps you pursue that. And so for us, I've tried every option under the sun. We have done daycare. We have done church school. We have done family. We have done part-time nannies. We have done full-time nannies. We have done private schools. So we have really run the gamut and spent a lot of parenting resources spinning the wheels and applying and all of that. There are a lot. And I think there's one of the skills that parents should learn early is how to find those resources for your family. there's not just, necessarily a guide for it. Sometimes it's just driving down the street and just keeping a note of, oh, there's a Montessori school over there. I should think about that one. Or, oh, I heard so-and-so goes to that church school. I should look at their waiting list or what hours they have.
Wait, that's right, the waiting list. That's another thing I was going to ask you about, because that blew my mind.
Yes, it is the thing. Yes, they will ask your due date and all of that. And it's different in different cities too, right? So Dallas is a major metropolitan area with lots of competitive options, which is amazing for our families, for our working moms, for our kids. But unfortunately, it leads to wait lists. And so you've got to be ready for that.
Gosh.
My best advice, short advice for moms, is to find a network of moms that you trust and ask what their experience has been. I had a mom tell me once, you always want to have a mom friend that's maybe just a few years ahead of you on the mom scale.
Okay.
So that way you're always a few years ahead on what your child needs to have. So where's the soccer? When does soccer happen? When does that start? What days does it happen on? Always have that mom friend in your text log of, when do I need to be looking for this? At what stage do I need to do that? And that'll help you kind of be prepared, be ready for wait lists, things like that. So definitely reach out. There's no one more supportive than another mom who's been there and done that and wants to share their wisdom with someone in their shoes.
Oh gosh, I can imagine, right? Because especially you have all this hard-won wisdom and advice that you've learned, and I can imagine people would want to share it. And so,
well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So.
Absolutely. So, you mentioned earlier priorities. So let's circle back around. What are your top 3 pieces of advice for young professionals who are also working mothers, and say, just overall?
So overall, I would say, going back to that childcare piece of it, is definitely work with your partner and work with your community to find the best resources that are available for you. Like I said before, you can do it all, but it actually means picking what it all is to you. Don't just say yes to everything on your plate. As women, we tend to say yes. People put projects in front of us. We tend to say yes. Learn to say no. Do that hard self-discovery of what are your goals at work? What are your goals at home? What hours are you going to protect at home so that your work doesn't bleed into those? And make something work in that regard. So that's my first piece of advice. I say, I actually think it would be to do that self-discovery and identify what's important to you. Second, I would say find the childcare that helps you support both of those. So you have that relationship with your kids that you want, you're worry-free, you know that they're okay. And then you have your career goals that you're working towards, and you've done that hard work to realize.
And so when you say identify that time with your children, or what's important to you, I think that's so important, right? Because, who doesn't love Sex and the City? But I feel like the show lied to me, because it seems that having it all is maybe an overstatement. So it seems that you can have everything that you really want. And so it's a system of determining what your priorities are. So what's an example of that, like with the children, for example?
Absolutely. And I think about that all the time. If I can share, first,
yes, please.
Having some isn't quite a sexy bumper sticker as having it all, but sometimes I think of, when I was a law student and thinking, oh, well, someday maybe I'll be a partner at a law firm and I'll have kids and a family, and that'll be great. That's my goal.
Having it all.
Having it all. And the only time I ever think about that memory is when I'm in my car eating day-old Chick-fil-A, driving from a courthouse to a carpool, and I'm like, having it all. This is having it all, right? Like, this is what it's supposed to look
Stale
like, I guess.
Chick-fil-A.
Right, it's not glamorous, but you have to identify what's important to you, and I do think that realization is important for moms. But in terms of can you repeat your question again?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of creating these priorities, like, what do you want your relationship to your children to look like? It sounds like you have to determine what times of day or what experiences that you are making the priority for your children.
Absolutely. So look at what your family's needs are first, right? You may have a spouse who has to be at work at a particular time every morning, or has a meeting every morning, and or it needs to work late or weekends. So look at what your family needs in terms of a team and who's going to be there for one another. But then once those needs are met, look at what family opportunities are meaningful to you. As a parent, as a mom, as a dad, what is important to you to bond with your kids? Are you going to be the person that's outside playing sports after bedtime? Are you going to be the person who really bonds with kids at breakfast? You're really not an evening person? Or are bedtimes important to you? Are you the only one who can get your kindergartner to read out loud? Identifying what's meaningful to you and how you can create that bond with your kids too is going to be more fulfilling for everyone. So even though you're not there every minute of the day, the minutes that you are there and the hours that you are there are quality. And they're the moments of your family's relationship that means the most to everyone. And I think you're going to be most efficient and happier that way.
Yeah, and I got to imagine that, I mean, as lawyers, we know there's late nights, there's long hours, all that kind of stuff. How have you been able to figure out with those priorities the unpredictable life of a mother, the unpredictable life of a lawyer? How have you been able to balance all that and figure out, okay, well, if I need to get these hours in, I can do it after bedtime or whatever. How have you balanced all that out?
That's a great question. I think there's no one size fits all answer.
Sure.
Every attorney's career and every attorney's family life is going to be a little different. But for me, I've really carved out the afternoon hours and the evening hours for my kids and family. My husband definitely takes the morning. He does the breakfast, he does the waffles, he does the carpool drop-offs in the morning. So that's definitely he's the leader. I'm the support during that time period. And then in the afternoon and evening, so from dinner to bedtime, I've really protected those hours with my work, with my clients. And the benefit of family law in my particular space is my clients are parents. They know. So if I'm telling them, I'm sorry, I'll call you back at 8:30, or can we talk via email tonight instead of by phone, I'm about to play Guess Who, they completely understand. Yeah. And so that's one of the benefits of being in my space where I'm working with other parents by choice, by profession. But for me, I've definitely carved out those hours from about 5:30 to 8:30. Those are that's my kid time. That's my special sacred time with them. And I pick things up after that if I need to.
Yeah. Well, and I got to ask the follow-up too, and not asking you to name names, but I assume you probably have met some challenges with employers or bosses or supervisors just through your career trying to set those hours, because we all know that it can be a very demanding profession. Sometimes we work with some people that may be a little more demanding than they need to be. Have you faced some of those challenges in your career?
Yeah, and I think that's what's interesting about being an attorney in general is that, our time is not necessarily our own. Is sometimes our time belongs to our boss or our partner who's managing a case and needs us there after hours, or it belongs to the court who isn't going to let that hearing end at 5 o'clock, or is, or just, you're going to be set tomorrow and you need to be ready to go tomorrow. Or you have those clients who really need you in that moment. And so, it doesn't come easily to have those conflicting demands, but learning how to, again, going back to the skills that you learn as a parent, as a mom, you learn how to effectively communicate what is going to work and what's not. And having that child care system in place so that you know what other options you may have. Hopefully you can plan ahead for some of these things like I try to. But it's not always easy. And I think the biggest challenge is sometimes with court and litigation.
Sure.
Oh, I can only imagine. I mean, at the end of the day, right, our calendars are not our own.
Right.
Gosh.
Yeah, well, it's a lot easier for me to not have to worry about that, but I can imagine that, hearings going till 6:30 and you've got kids to pick up. That's a much different stress level at that point.
It is. But luckily in Dallas County, we've got some great judges who will understand if you politely let them know what the need is. Hopefully they'll be accommodating if you need them to.
Right.
So every listener for this show knows I love a good hypothetical. And so, of course, I couldn't let you go without lobbing a couple your way. So I wanted to ask you, say you have Jane, right? And Jane is a fifth-year litigation associate at a mid-sized law firm, and she and her husband just found out that they're expecting their first baby. Very early on, just found out she's pregnant. What are the top 3 pieces of advice that you have to Jane at this moment?
Well, very exciting for Jane. The first piece of advice I would have for her is to start looking 8 to 10 months ahead on her litigation calendar if she works in litigation specifically, or what her deadlines are if she's in another area of law, and try to resolve things around her due date in mind, hypothetically. So she doesn't need to make any big decisions yet, but I think that's a big window of time where she needs to be thinking about her vacation letter, trial settings, if she's going into pretrials, you know, telling judges, you know, around what time she would like to see a case settle or go to mediation, and really trying to throttle her cases so that they're either resolved or in a period of seamless transition by the time that she goes through having her baby. The second piece of advice I would have for her is to probably start researching childcare options.
The Gordian knot.
The Gordian knot. And this is a family problem. This is not just a mom problem. I want to emphasize that. Dads need to be involved in this too. But she needs to be looking at what options are available to her. Again, go through that self-realization period of, is my job fulfilling what I want? Am I filling too much of my work plate with fluff? Do I need to switch to something that's more of a 40-hour week and less of this kind of overflowing litigation waterfall sometimes? You know, what are her goals? Does she need to pursue a passion project, or does she need a number of billables? I think she needs to go through that process to determine, is this going to be a good fit for me? And is she going to need to adjust her role pre and post baby? So start making those plans and asking those questions now, because that's not an easy decision to come to.
It sounds like a lot of self-discovery and self-reflection is involved.
It is, and it's hard work.
My gosh, I can't even sit down and meditate for 2 seconds. So let alone have a journey of self-discovery. I can't imagine that that is something easy or quick.
Well, that's why I want to emphasize it, though, is I think that is the work that really pays off for working moms is, again, you're going to be overflowing with work demands and family demands. And by identifying what's important to you, you're going to the decisions will start making themselves. And your plate is going to be full with the things that you've already prioritized and planned for and want. And you're going to be able to say no more easily to the things that don't meet your goals.
Which almost in a way, I mean, that's so interesting to me, right? And maybe this is just me, but I always have a hard time saying no to things, right? Because I never want to pass up an opportunity, and I never want to pass up a good learning experience. But it sounds like you learn very quickly as either an expecting or a new mom to say no.
You have to. You have to. Or you have to say, yes, but.
Yes, but. I like that
and start
phrase.
that negotiation.
I like that. Is this how you start Wafflegate in the mornings?
It is. Yes, but. I actually think that's an MBA game they play in business programs.
Oh my gosh.
About how to add onto an idea, maybe change it a little bit.
I like that.
But yeah, I think so. That's going to be an important thing for Jane to do. And last but not least, I think that Jane needs to look ahead at finding backup, you know, and luckily Jane's at a mid-sized firm, so she should have some backup already available with her firm, with her support there in-house. But let's say Jane's a solo. You know, the law offers a lot of autonomy for working moms. And so if she's a solo, get on the Texas Family Lawyers Moms Facebook page.
And there's a Moms Facebook page.
There are so many Texas Law Moms Facebook pages. They're amazing resources.
Heard about these.
How did you know about this? No, I didn't. You're not even a mom, Austin.
I have 2 moms that work for me.
Oh, never mind. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I listen.
They are amazing communities. And so work with them, work with your bar association. You will find women who are able to support you and your clients through that period of transition. So start looking at what that will look like.
Love that.
Yeah, I've heard great things about those groups, just ideas and resources and all sorts of things, whether it's law, momhood, or motherhood, or whatever it is. So I've through the experience of my team members, I've heard about those things.
Yeah, it is definitely a great place to find a community, to find women who have been there, done that right alongside you, so you know you're not alone, and help build trust with other lawyers.
I love that. So I'm going to throw a twist in this hypothetical for you. But before I throw that twist in, I want to ask you a question.
Uh-oh.
So Jane just found out she's pregnant, you know, and she is thinking, oh my gosh, everything's so overwhelming. Maybe she's listened to this podcast. She's taking your advice. She's creating her priorities, clearing up her calendar, trying to resolve those issues. Now there's one big lingering question. When does she tell her boss, and who does she tell at work that she's expecting, and when does she tell them?
The $1 million question.
The $1 million question.
We've all been in the room with Jane, who hasn't announced she's pregnant and wondered, is she pregnant? But I think that and my lawyer answer is, it depends.
Of course.
But it depends on her relationship with her employer. It depends on her health. And it depends on when Jane wants that information to be released. So I think most doctors, from my experience, would recommend towards the end of your first trimester. So she should probably communicate with her doctor about that if she's got any complications or things like that. She just wants to be sure that that news is going to be delivered seamlessly. And know what her due date is and all of that, so people have a clear plan. But also it depends on her level of familiarity with her employer. I mean, some women really can't make it through their first trimester easily without getting morning sickness or things like that.
I've heard horror stories.
It happens. It definitely happens. And oh yes, I became very familiar with the Dallas County jury room when I was pregnant with my second as a DA. Yes, it definitely happens. And people are going to figure it out. And it's okay to have work friends that you trust who are going to have your back, who are going to help you through that early phase of your pregnancy. But I think that Jane should talk to her doctor, and depends on her relationship with her boss.
I like that. There's no one size fits all, it seems like, in this situation.
No.
All right, so now we're going to throw a twist in the hypothetical. Jane has followed all of your advice, and now she is about to embark on maternity leave. Happy, healthy baby, easy delivery. And now she wants to think, okay, now that I'm going on maternity leave, what are the top 3 pieces of advice that I should have?
That's a great question. One of my favorite memories is looking back on my very first maternity leave and remembering someone had called it a vacation.
A vacation?
And I was like, well,
oh
okay
my God.
Then.
I mean, look, I don't have this personal experience but from listening to my girlfriends who have had children, it does not sound like a vacation.
It's not quite the vacation you've dreamed of, no. So I think, again, no one size fits all. And even no one size fits all for the same woman for different pregnancies. I know women who have been able to delete their work email off of their phone completely and dedicate themselves wholly to recovering and bonding with their baby and starting the family really intentionally in that regard. And then I know some women who either because of their own obligations weren't able to completely turn off their phone, or by choice didn't want to, and continued working through the process. So it definitely depends. For me personally, I had 2 different ones. So
an example of one size does not fit all, even for the same woman for different pregnancies.
Oh, I can't believe how different my mindset was with both. With my first, I was intentional. I was home. I had projects. I was learning the schedule and how to swaddle and figuring all the things of new moms need to figure out. And then with my second, it was pretty fast when I was like, I need to do something with my baby. And it didn't mean that I didn't love my baby and I wasn't bonding and I wasn't spending most of my time with him at that moment, but I was ready. I had room in my mind and in my heart for something else to get out, to be productive, to be stimulated during the day. So definitely one thing Jane might consider too is talking to her employer about what options might exist if she wanted to keep working a little bit, or if she might come back a little bit, what that could look like.
Awesome. I love that. And I think that's such a good piece of advice, because I mean, I've always just viewed maternity leave as black and white. You know, you either take it or you don't, and there's no in between. So I'm really glad to hear that there are options.
Yeah, there can be. But the most important thing is that Jane is getting the rest that she needs, that her baby is healthy, and that her family is off to a strong start. That's why we have it.
So say Jane is a little bit like you with your second pregnancy, and she has the room to be a little bit more productive in terms of work, and she really wants that, and, you know, baby's great, and she's able to do so. What ways do you think Jane would be able to do so? Like, should she go to a coffee shop? Should she stay at home? I mean, how should she do this? Logistically, what are we talking?
Well, I know in my experience with my second, my employer at the time, I don't think was expecting me to come back or speak up for several weeks after my baby, but I sent an email being like, got anything to do? Like,
surprise!
Hi, how are you? What's up? And she was very reluctant to give me anything, but I ended up negotiating kind of a take-home amortized hourly rate so that I could do just a little bit of drafting, just a little bit of backup assistance, litigation prep type work as needed. And it wasn't much, but it got me dressed. Yeah. It got me structured in my day. It got me out of the house. It paid for Starbucks. And I think for my mental health at the time, I wanted to get out and clear my head. And then when I was coming home, I was feeling much more intentional as a mom. It felt less crazy. You know, having 2 kids was a big transition the more you had.
I can only imagine.
You can imagine. And so it did help the transition seem easier when I had kind of that moment of silence and I could work on drafting or something that I knew and was comfortable with. And then after an hour or 2, I could come home and I was definitely more prepared and ready and felt productive during the day. It made me feel good. And so Jane should look at, again, her priorities, what she wants at the time. And she may not know it until, she wakes up and wants something that day. She can just reach out to her boss like I did. So
I love that. So, but speaking of working, right? So maternity leave is going to come to an end for Jane, and she's maybe a little bit nervous. Maybe she has been working a little bit and she's been able to have a good arrangement with her boss where she does some work, but now she's about to come back to work full time. What are the things that she should keep in mind when she's transitioning from her maternity leave and going back to work full time?
That's a great thing to prepare for. And Jane should not come back to work naively thinking that everything is going to go back to the way it was 12 weeks ago or however long ago that she had her baby. Jane's going to be a different person when she comes back. And she needs to understand that and respect that and give herself a lot of grace. I think employers, judges, partners, opposing counsel all need to give women grace during that time period when they're transitioning back from maternity leave. Jane, if she hasn't had a baby before, will find her clothes may not fit the same. She may not be as well rested. Her projects may look different than they did 3 months ago, and she's starting over with new things. So she needs to give herself a lot of grace at that time. It's going to be getting ready in the morning. It's going to look different. I know a lot of my mom friends and I, when we had little bitty newborns, we all were exchanging ideas, and we set up our little bouncers in our bathroom. So we could teach your baby to hold the bottle early so they could hold their bottle and have their little morning milk while you're getting ready and doing your hair. And, you just kind of figure that out, that you're going to look different. Your hair's going to be done different. I'm doing a bottle and blow drying my hair. So it's going to be different. But my advice to Jane when coming back is to be patient. Don't give up. Keep showing up. And every day she's going to have days where it may not be easy. It may not be what she envisioned. It may be full of surprises, but she needs to keep showing up. That's the hardest part, is showing up every day for work and family. That's the hardest thing. She needs to keep doing it. And over time, that's going to pay off. She's going to find herself eventually finding her rhythm, figuring out, I've made it. I'm out of that. I'm out of the fog. I'm out of the slump. She'll get there.
Gosh, words of wisdom, words of hope, right? Because it probably feels never ending at that point when you're in the middle of the fog.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Gosh. But again, lean on your community and lean on your priorities.
And so I wanted to circle back at the beginning, right? So when Jane is pregnant and she is planning on taking maternity leave, what should she know, or what should she know to ask her boss about for FMLA and any other maternity-related policy issues?
Absolutely. So knowing the person in your company who handles that is the first step. So look at your employees' written policy on it. Hopefully they have one. They may be, hopefully they have one. Find their written policy about it and find out who the person is who controls that, who does the HR at your office. And that may be different for every firm, whether big or small. So figure out who that person is, understand what the policy is. In Texas, it's generally 12 weeks unpaid, but employers can create other arrangements that they want. There's no limit on what employers can do. Some offered paid, some offered part pay. You can do, I forget the word for it, medical leave.
Yeah, short-term disability.
Tack it on. There's a lot of different ways to do it. So Jane should have that conversation with her employer after she's read their written policy first, understands it, and has questions about how it'll apply to what she needs.
And that's good, because the whole FMLA and maternity leave policy, again, another area of balancing law and motherhood that sounds confusing, and definitely in need of advice from the community and from people like you.
It is, and it takes a lot of courage for Jane to speak up. If she needs more, if she needs something different, it doesn't hurt Jane to understand who that person is. She needs to have that difficult conversation with. You don't get it if you don't ask for it. And so I would want Jane to have the courage to speak up. If there's something about that policy that doesn't work for her or doesn't seem fair, I would encourage Jane to look at her community and what other employers are offering and talk to her boss. Maybe another competitor is offering this and they should consider it if they want to attract better talent. Bring that to the table. So Jane should definitely consider those things while she's starting this journey of hers.
Journey it is, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
So I want to flip the tables around, because you've been giving some really wonderful words of wisdom and advice here. So what, for you, when you were starting this journey, was the best advice you ever got?
The best advice I got was invest in the best childcare you can find. And it's funny how that advice came to me. I was a DA waddling around the Dallas courthouse. Goodness me. And just very unsolicited, this kind of old, kind of frumpy male lawyer gave me this unsolicited advice of how the best parenting decision he ever made was, invest in high quality childcare. And it helped him, it helped his wife. And at the time I was like, gosh, golly gee, thanks. Completely didn't went over my head. I was like, who is this guy? But as I grew as a parent and I watched my career evolve and I watched my kids grow and thrive in different environments, I realized that finding the childcare solutions that work is an investment in any working mom's career. I mean, it's an investment in your whole family's career. It's an investment in dads, it's an investment in moms. But especially since moms tend to carry more of the emotional load, the logistics, the planning of that generally, I think that it is particularly important for moms to realize that that is a key decision that they will make in their quality of life and the professional opportunities that they can take on, and communicating with their spouse too about how to effectively manage. Like I said, my spouse does most of the morning drop-offs, and I'm kind of he's the AM specialist, I'm the PM specialist. And so we kind of have our zones of leadership there that works for our family, and we know what to expect. But definitely the best piece of advice I got was invest in high quality childcare. I'm not worried about my kids. I know that they're thriving and they're in great places, and I'm always keeping an eye on the next best thing for them.
I love that. Frankly, I think you should write a pamphlet on childcare options in Dallas, or maybe you should have a column talking about childcare options, because Lord knows I'll read it when the time comes.
I would love it. I will definitely consider it.
So I wanted to switch gears a little bit, right, and talk about the pandemic and working moms.
Oh yeah.
I mean so one of Spencer's colleagues, she has 3 children, and I don't know if it's 2 under 2 or 3 under 2, but there's a lot. And they're all little.
Yeah.
And he would share some of the things that she would tell him about her days, and I was just floored. I don't understand how she does it. I mean, 3 children, working full time, also taking care of a house and a husband. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how you play lawyer, teacher, mom, nurse. What's the secret? How did you all make it?
Yeah, this was the true test of working moms, I think. This was our kind of Sisyphean moment to push that boulder up the mountain, I think. And, if there's ever anyone who has more grit, more patience, is more ready for that opportunity, it is the mom of 3 under 3, let me tell you. And the pandemic has created a lot of really interesting opportunities for working moms. So it's been tough, right? Especially when you have a full-time job, sometimes in litigation, where you have court and virtual court and things like that. And then you're also logging your kindergartner into Zoom and your preschooler into Zoom, and you've got 14 seesaw assignments due by 2 p.m. and you've got glitter on your floor. And
glitter.
It comes home in the bag, the virtual school bag.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay, I'm going to have a strict no glitter policy in my house, because that stuff never, from my sorority days, I tell you, it never comes out of the carpet.
I think we all have had some teachable moments coming out of the pandemic, and maybe schools can learn that shouldn't come home in the virtual school bag.
I think it's a great idea.
But you had these moments of, how on earth is this even possible? And luckily we were all in it together, but it was definitely a challenge, and it definitely created, I think the benefit is it made families closer together. But we were all able to accomplish more than we ever thought we could or imagined that we could in a single day by the time it was all said and done. So I think it was a good test of a mom's grit and resilience, dads too. But I think that one of the great opportunities that came out of it was the technology integration. I mean, if there was ever a better gift to moms to integrate their home life and their kids, it was the overnight necessity to shift to virtual school, virtual court, virtual meetings, working from home, knowing how to have your kids sit patiently while you write an email and then come back to them, knowing how to create that that relationship of patience with them. I mean, great opportunity for working moms.
It sounds like it. And so, I mean, with the technology, right, has come so many blessings. I mean, especially with the preschoolers, that kind of blows my mind that we're able to have preschoolers sit in front of a screen and actually interact? I mean, how do you accomplish that?
Oh my gosh, it is, well, I feel like I was simultaneously teaching my kindergartner and my preschooler how to sit on Zoom, watch, keep eye contact, don't be distracted. And then I would go to my clients and prep them for their Zoom hearings, and I would use the same techniques.
You would use the same language.
And I actually thought it would be hilarious if we had like a virtual like mock court with kindergartners on Zoom or something.
Well, that would be a YouTube viral hit, let me tell you.
Well, now someone's going to steal it, but it would be awesome. But I think that, you learn with the technology how to integrate your work and life. It's not something that you necessarily have to balance and keep one on the left and one on the right. The technology has allowed us to carry both more easily. And I think that goes for our kids who can, if they're homesick or something like that, can still log in and have a little bit of a school day if they want to. Also for parents, just the ability alone to have employers who are supportive of employers being at home, who may not need to pay for daycare or childcare or anything like that, who can still get their job done, still meet their hours, still be productive, but not have to have that extra childcare overhead. Game changer. That was a reason women wouldn't even enter the workforce, was that reason right there.
Which is wild. And see, so I'm really curious, right? Because I heard this, I don't know if it's a statistic, but what I had heard is that women were disproportionately and in record numbers leaving the workforce during the pandemic because of childcare duties and carrying the majority of that load, as we had discussed earlier. And so now it looks like we might find a solution with technology and the ability to integrate.
Absolutely. It's a double-edged sword, though, because on one hand, we love that this technology has created more opportunities for women who are also caregivers. But we want to be careful that the only employees that are home are not just women.
Absolutely.
That the people who are showing up, the people who are making decisions, we don't want all the working moms just to go home and be with their kids now. That's great, and we love having that flexibility, but we need to be careful that women are also in the office or in the Zoom meetings or wherever they need to be, who are making decisions for their company, so that they can also be factors of change going forward. But going back to the technology too, one thing people don't realize is the ability of schools to integrate that technology, not having to take a half day for both parents to go to a school, sit down for a 10-minute preschool parent-teacher meeting, which is valuable, but taking a half day off of work to do that may not have been necessary. And it's better for the teachers, it's better for the parents. If we can do all of this electronically, some of it is just as effective. So I think it's been a great teachable moment of what things can we get away with from the pandemic, what didn't we like, and then what do we want to keep? And some of this technology, I think, really helps working parents in general.
Identifying priorities again. I'm sensing 100%. A theme.
Yes, absolutely.
So if you're willing to tell this story, this is something that you and I discussed in the pre-show conference call, and it sounds like something out of a movie, frankly. So... And this was with your first, right?
It was with my first.
This is with your first. Do you feel comfortable telling that story?
I do. Okay. I do. I'm proud to say that both of my pregnancies were spent in courtrooms fully. Like my second, especially, he has tried a lot of jury trials. But my first, I went to a lot of hearings, especially late in my pregnancy. Right, that's when you set your trials. You set your you try to dispose of your docket and get things moving. So I had a lot of trials set, and with my first, I was about early in my third trimester, so I was not full term, but still very, very pregnant. And I showed up to a CPS docket at here in Dallas County, and it was not an intense hearing. I didn't have to do a lot of the talking, in other words. But I showed up, and I wasn't feeling myself, and I was like, I'm just tired today. Like, what is going on? But didn't think anything of it, made it through, did the CPS hearing. And at the end, I remember sitting in that courtroom, like in the little, kind of in front of the bar, sitting in that chair before I got my bag. And I was like, just don't feel right. What's going on today? But again, totally naive, first child. I was like, maybe I need to go have some decaf coffee or something.
Oh my
I was like, what to do? And so I get my bag and I walk out to my car from the courthouse, which is not a short walk.
No, not in Dallas County.
Nope. I make it to my car, and I was like, this is not right. And I couldn't identify how I felt. And again, so naive, hadn't even gone to like the meeting at the hospital where you're supposed to like tour where you give birth and stuff.
Oh my
like,
gosh.
I was so naive. I called my doctor and I was like, hey, just feel a little weird. I don't know. What should I do? Can I take Tylenol? What should I do? And I described what I was feeling. And the nurse on the phone said, you should start timing this. Does it come and go? And I was like, hold on a second. Yes. She's like, you should start timing it. I was like, huh?
What?
And she was like, just call me back, time it, and then I'll go get the doctor. We'll call you back. I was like, okay. And then I did the worst thing you could do, which is Google it.
Oh,
and I was like, oh my God.
Dr. Google.
And I was like, oh my God, these are contractions. Oh my gosh. And I'm timing them. And then, so I was fine enough that I did safely drive back to my office, which was not far. But I drove back to my office and I was in rough shape. And my doctor had told me by then I needed to just come in. And I was like, okay. And I ended up being admitted full preterm labor right there. And it had started like before the hearing had even happened. And I was just feeling like, oh, that's weird. But yeah, I was full preterm labor and I was put on bed rest after that, which was a personal challenge. But
I can imagine.
Luckily, me and baby Joe were safe and made it. So
all's well that ends well.
Yes,
but that's
absolutely
wild to go into active labor in a courtroom. Legitimately, that sounds like something out of a movie.
I still can't go to that particular courtroom without being like, oh,
a little PTSD.
I know. I'm like, take a deep breath before you go in here. It's not going to happen again.
Was this at Crowley or George Allen?
It was actually at the Henry Wade Juvenile Justice Courthouse. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it was like way even south of downtown. It was a CPS docket, which sometimes happened there.
Sure.
So it was, I mean, again, you have to be prepared as a parent to experience surprises at any moment. And
that's a big surprise.
Oh yeah, definitely. But it keeps you on your toes. You know, I mean, you're ready for anything. And that was kind of my first lesson of like, okay, that was my first surprise. Like whatever plans I had, throw them out the window. I'm on bed rest and we're going to make this new thing work.
I love that. Well, you shared so much valuable advice with us today, as well as your movie-level preterm court labor story. Do you have any final words of wisdom that you want to share with the audience?
I just want to encourage all working moms in general to stick in it, stay with it. And, you know, definitely having it all definitely doesn't mean having what somebody else's vision of a life looks like. You know, having it all, figure out what that means for you, what is most important to you, and then have the courage to go get it.
I love that. Wise words indeed. Lindsey, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all that with us.
Thanks, Andrea and Austin.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Y'all, thank you so much for tuning in, listening, and we hope to see you next time. Don't forget, stay tuned for Closing Arguments.
Guys, thanks for listening. Closing Arguments are coming up, but make sure before you go rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast anywhere that you listen to your podcast. Check us out on YouTube, and you can check us out on Instagram and talk to us, tell us what you want to hear about. You can search us at #Lawyered, spelled out. You can talk to Andrea at andrea.s.turner, and you can talk to me at The Dallas Lawyer. See y'all again soon.
Welcome back to Closing Arguments, and today it's all about trademark. So sexy, right? Well, I do think that Marc Jacob does have some sexy pieces, but now they're doing battle with Ohio State University over trademarking the word "the" on apparel. That's right. Both of these entities want to trademark "the" an article on apparel. Wild, right? Who knows how that's going to turn out?